Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this very interesting knife right here. This is the EnZo Borka Model 9D Scandi Grind. First off, though, I want to thank my buddy Chris for sending this along, letting me test it out. Check it out. Very interesting piece and very aesthetically interesting. So, I'm glad I had a chance. Next thing, size comparison. This is actually a reasonably sized knife right here. Here it is against the Spyderco, good God, guys, Ontario Rat number 1 and your Rat number 2. So you can see here in terms of blade length, we're right in Rat 2 sort of Rat 1 department. Oh man, it's that kind of day, isn't it? Here we are against the Spyderco. See, this is a Spyderco, hence the whole Delica. So you can see here, gives you your overall size. And then here it is against a Buckknife's 110. Another sort of more traditionally styled knife with a little bit of my God on it. So, there you go. Next thing, what the heck is an EnZo? So EnZo, aside from being a Ferrari from the 2000s, is the name of a company that is based out of Finland, and they are creating some actually very interesting looking knives. They've got this little guy, the Borka, they've got the Burke, they've got a number of fixed blades, things like that. But they seem to be kind of Scandinavian bushcrafty style knives, and so that's kind of cool. Next thing, actually, there aren't really any other next things. You already saw the disassembly attempt video, so let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. This very interesting knife. To start with, on the good side, it's got a very nice blade to it. It is a full Scandi sort of, well, not full Scandi, but it is a Scandi grind. I mean, it is an actual Scandi. To the best of my knowledge, there is not a micro bevel on this guy anywhere particularly at all. And that's a good thing. It is also a relatively practical blade shape here. It gets pretty thick toward the tip there, but that's good. It gives you some piercing sort of cuts, and it's a reasonably shaped and a reasonably kind of. It's a solid blade shape. No complaints there. The steel on this guy is N690CO, which is one of those steels that's fine. It works. So there you go. And then it actually has a very nice mirror polish right here, so you can see indeed that I am the knight, in addition to the knife reviewer. So there you go, or at least one of many. Let's be real here. So there you go. The blade on this guy is very nice. Next thing, the clip on this guy works quite well. You can see here. It is a kind of good old-fashioned style springy clip. Actually pretty reminiscent of some of the stuff Spyderco's running around in terms of overall pattern here. But it works. It's got some decent enough spring to it here. It's on top of a relatively smooth micarta, so there's no real concern with it there. 3 different clip sizes, and it is in fact bidextrously. Look, whatever it is, it's mountable on both sides. If there's a word for that, by God, I don't have it, but that's where we are. But what that does mean is that this is a completely ambidextrous knife, because you have thumb studs on both sides, you have clip holes on both sides, it is a backlock, and the only thing that you're missing on this side is the nail nick, and, well, you don't need that to freaking start with, so, it is what it is. But this means a lefty is going to have the same experience as a righty carrying this knife, and that's a beautiful thing. No complaints there whatsoever, so that's good. And I'll also say that in terms of carry, although this guy is pretty thick in the handle, I mean, we can see here, we hold it up next to the Rat 1, it is thicker than the Rat 1, which is not a trivial thing to do, by the way. But it is a relatively thick knife, and again, here it is against the Buck 110, so you can see we're in very similar thickness territory here. But it is a thick knife, 100%, but that's really the only down thing you can say about it in the pocket, and that pays dividends in terms of ergonomics, and actually that brings us to the next point, which is that the ergonomics on this are quite good. It is really nice in a good old-fashioned hammer grip as well as in a saber grip. You can see you've got a nice blade guard up here. The micarta is nicely contoured in a couple of different places that give you what really feels like a pretty decent grip on it. Because of both the nature of the micarta, which has a little bit of ribbing in and of itself, it's kind of fishy, honestly. Just kind of not like fishy in the suspicious sense, but fishy in the fishish sense. Yeah, because it looks like a freaking fish. Anyways, but it's nice in the hand, and this contouring really does make it stick in there, and it's got, especially when you got this bit in the back here, this is not going anywhere, and so that thickness, although it's certainly something you notice in the pocket, it does pay dividends in the ergonomic domain, so that's good. And then finally on this guy, I gotta say, it's off the beaten path. There aren't that many knives that look like this. There aren't that many bushcrafty style folders to start with, and there aren't that many of them that are made. When they are made, they tend to be made with slightly less impressive materials. And this guy has this beautiful micarta, which is nice, and it's really doing something a little bit more specialized. And you know what? I always do appreciate a little specialization, because it tends to break things out of the everyday mold. It means something may not be right for you, and indeed this knife may not be right for many people, but it does mean that it could be very right for some. So to me, at least, that's what's good here, is that it is off the beaten path. It has very good ergonomics. It's solidly built. I think I said that, but in case I didn't, guess what? It's solidly built. Backlocks are good to go. It is a nice clip. It is fully ambidextrous as a knife, as well as something you put in your pocket. And it has a very nice blade with a Scandi Grind, which means it goes all the way. Did I define that? I probably didn't. Which means that the actual bevel on most knives you can see here, like on this buck here, there is the grind of the blade, and then there is the edge bevel down here. The edge bevel is just down there at the bottom, whereas on this guy, the edge bevel extends all the way out to here. So it just comes to one single triangular point there. So there you go. That's kind of an interesting thing. But anyways, and it's got a full Scandi Grind with a nice polish on there. Can't argue with that too much, unless you dislike fingerprints, in which case you're going to be arguing. On the great side, this guy has a beautiful freaking handle. Look, I love the handle of this knife a lot. I really do like the green micarta is a beautiful material, but it's really well done here. It just looks awesome. It looks classy, and it ages with you. You can see here that, for instance, there's a little less coloration around the clip. Gets sort of a wabi-sabi thing going on. I'm not generally speaking like a huge OD green micarta sort of guy, but oh man, is this pretty. And so I like this a lot. I think this is a very, very attractive handle material, and the fact that they've got this done in the way that it is, with sort of the hidden pivot, just these 3 screws here, it looks just beautiful. And so this is a very classy looking knife. It's a very kind of old school looking knife, relatively unintimidating, although certainly people are going to find a way to be intimidated. But you know, I think that's pretty nice. So to me, at least, that's what's great, is I like this handle. The micarta is just really freaking classy. On the bad side, the price on this guy is not necessarily bad. It's okay. This is sort of the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly, and the price is This is $150. Now look, it's a specialized knife. And so they're not going to sell a billion of them. I get it at some level. But N690 is not a steal. I'm loving it. $150. Frankly, it's not a steal I super love personally. It's fine. It's good to go. You can use it. But it's not like, oh my God, N690, really? But you know, okay, whatever. It is what it is. At that price, all right. That's kind of how I feel about it. All right. On the next thing on the bad side, the disassembly on this guy could actually be touch and go. Now, I will fully admit, I wimped out. In my disassembly video, you will see that I turned tail and ran, because I wasn't sure that I was going to get it back together in a reasonable state in the amount of time I had to offer to it. It's very possible. Sorry, fan kicked on there. But it's very possible that you can be able to pull that off, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to, and so that's something that I'm not necessarily in love with. It's certainly one approach to making a backlock, but I'm not sure it's the most compelling one. Next thing, the backlock on this guy, speaking of this, in a more functional sense, is a very strong, you require a fair amount of force to unlock the backlock here. And it is unfortunately kind of an inconsistent force. At some areas of it, it is very, very strong force. At other areas, it's very, very weak, as opposed to on some other knives where, for instance, like the Delica here, it is a very consistent amount of force required throughout. And what that means, especially given that you don't have like incredible purchase on this thumb stud, that is that there were times where it's just like, you really kind of fits in spurts, and that's not something I love with a blade this sharp sitting there. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. Next thing, Scandi Grind. Look, Scandi Grinds are very attractive. They've got a role, certainly, and their best role is for, like, wood crafting, bushcrafting, that kind of thing. That's where a Scandi will excel. But in everyday life, for me, and I think for a lot of people, a Scandi Grind is actually not as ideal, because with this thicker stock here, you can see that it goes out to the full thickness of the stock very, very quickly. This is effectively a very, very, it's a very low saber grind, although, again, with the the Scandi there, it goes all the way to the edge. But that means that, for instance, I tried this guy with some cardboard, and then I tried it against this Buck 110, and then I tried it against the Spyderco Capara, because that's also on my desk here. And this guy outcut this guy in terms of the Capara, that is, outcut the EnZo by a pretty good margin. Where this guy shined was in wood. I did a little bit of wood carving and like pine. Oh man, it's wonderful in that domain. And so that's where this really wins. But that isn't necessarily what most people are going to be doing. Unless you are cutting open boxes and those boxes are made of plywood, that's not going to be necessarily what you're after here. The other thing to note is that the edge, as a result, is a little bit more fragile than most, and that's not necessarily ideal. I'm going to see if I can show off here. There was one little region right there. You can see a little tiny bit right there of edge damage coming on this, and I was just doing some basic wood cutting, was just doing some cardboard cutting, that kind of thing, and there's a little tiny bit of edge damage there. Now, to be fair, like I said, this is a very little amount of edge damage, and overall, with the nature of the grind, it's probably going to work fine for bushcrafting still, but that makes this a much more fragile edge than, for instance, this guy here on the Capara, where I was doing many of the same tasks, and it's absolutely good to go. Part of that is probably the steel. Part of that could just be me being a jackass. But that didn't super impress me. And so as a result, this guy is a very, very specialized tool. It may be a great knife for bushcrafting, but for your everyday life, I'm not so sure. It's kind of its own little unique beast, and you may not be the kind of beast this one is after, so to speak. So to me, at least, that's what's bad here, is that, you know, the blade edge is maybe a little more fragile than I expected. The Scandi on a thicker blade isn't so great for cardboard and paper and the kinds of things a lot of folks do with their everyday lives. And by the way, closed cell foam, nope. The backlock is pretty strong with a pretty inconsistent force. Disassembly is a little touch and go on it. You can probably pull it off, but that could get dangerous. Well, not dangerous in the sense you're going to lose fingers, but dangerous in the sense you're going to lose hours. And at $150, the price is okay-ish, yeah. On the ugly front, there's one ugly issue here that is... I haven't actually had this issue yet, so let me be clear, this is theoretical. And there could be a way that you can deal with this by taking off the thumb studs, but take a look at this guy. So you've got your Scandi Grind right here. And that means that in order to sharpen this guy, at least ideally, you are going to be laying this whole bevel down onto a stone and sharpening it in that domain. The problem, though, is that when you've got this guy here with your thumb studs down here, the thumb studs are actually a little bit higher than the angle of the Scandi Grind is. So it's going to be right up there on the edge. And especially if you're shallowing it out any, I worry that you're actually going to be digging into the stones as you're trying to sharpen this Scandi Grind. And that's really not ideal. That's part of the reason why a good old-fashioned fixed blade knife like a Mora or something like that has an advantage with Scandis, because you can do whatever you'd like. You don't have to worry about opening materials on the handle. And by the way, you don't have to worry about the nail nick either. And the nail nick, I didn't quite know where to put in, because it's kind of for my life, it's a little bit ugly, but at the same time, for people who are living in Europe, where they may not have one opening, or they may not allow one hand opening, it's kind of a necessity, so they got both. Whatever, not a big deal, but it's certainly, having that thumb stud there is going to make sharpening this a little bit more of a task, if you will, than it would have otherwise been. And so to me, at least, I think that's ugly. Anytime I see these kinds of Scandis, I want to be able to, I want to see them sharpenable straightforwardly, and I worry with these thumb studs and the angles involved here that that's not going to be the case. So to me, at least, that's ugly. Take that, though, with a grain of salt, because like I said, this is more of a hypothetical issue. I haven't sharpened this guy. On the final conclusion front, this is a very specialized knife. It is kind of a bushcrafting folder. You can think about it that way. It's also a very classy-looking knife. It's nicely done, etc. Fit and finish-wise, overall, it's pretty solid. But the simple fact is that it's really kind of meant to do something specific. It's not an everyday carry knife in the classical sense. You can use it as that, but it's going to have some downsides. It's really, unless your everyday tasks involve trees, this may not be your best choice. And I'm also not a huge fan of the disassembly, not a huge fan of the action, or the blade grind. I think for EDC may not be the ideal. And of course, the Scandi fans are going to be, in the comments tearing me to crap, but that's I guess, carving me to crap, let's be real here. And the sharpening issue does scare me considerably. So ultimately, I don't know. It is a unique knife, 100%. But do I recommend it? Honestly, I don't think so. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Like I said, the blade on this guy is a little bit impractical for everyday tasks. I mean, this gets real thick behind the edge real quickly. Well, okay. I mean, it gets to full thickness very quickly. Thick behind the edge almost doesn't make sense anymore with the Scandi. But anyways, it's not going to be stellar for a lot of the tasks I have. And so that makes it maybe it's a little bit of a demerit. There's also the Cold Steel Fin Wolf, which is a very similar design in terms of not like classiness or anything like that. This is a big step up in that domain. But the Fin Wolf has a very similar blade shape, and it's about half the price with the Scandi Grind and everything. So that's another approach you can take if you really want a Scandi folder. But the simple fact to me is that you can get a good old-fashioned Mora knife for like $8 freaking bucks. Hold on, I think I got one of those guys over here. Come here, Mora. Yeah. So you can get a good old-fashioned freaking Mora knife right over here. And this is just a Scandi knife. I mean, you can see here, the blade shape-wise, this one's got some corrosion-resistant stuff on there. But whatever it is, it's got some, it's a good old-fashioned Scandi grind. And so you can get this same kind of idea here in a fixed-blade platform where you got thinner stock, which is going to make it cut better in cardboard, things like that. You've got a sheath rather than folding, and frankly, there are some disadvantages to folding knives in a bushcrafty sort of context. I mean, do you want to be worried about that, or do you just want a tool? I don't freaking know. And so, considering that this is $150 and this is $15, yeah, I think this is where I'm going to send more people. And I think fixed blades are really a better choice, at least for my general impression of bushcrafting. Mind you, I am not a bushcrafter. Many things I am, but bushcrafter or not. And so, ultimately, I'm not sure I really recommend the EnZo in a world where you've got the Fin Wolf if you want a folder, and you don't require the classiness of it there. And when there were Mora knives out there for $8 to $15 that have a very similar blade with even thinner stock and are basically disposable price-wise. So, ultimately, like I said, with that, I think it's a nice piece, but I think this knife's role in my particular life is absolutely finished. Get it? Finland joke? No? Okay. Anyways, hope this was been interesting here, that I didn't Borka your heart, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.